Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again. With sheets that feel breathable to sleep in, you'll experience the purest softness on night one and feel your sheets get even softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code WONDERY15. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
The Sleep Number Smart Bed is the best bed for couples, and there's a good reason for that. Only Sleep Number Smart Beds let you choose your ideal comfort and support on your side of the bed. Firmer or softer on either side. Sleep Number does that. Perhaps you want your side cooler, and your partner wants their side warmer. Sleep Number does that too. You choose what's right for you, making it the best bed for the both of you. The Sleep Number Smart Bed will even automatically respond and adjust to your movements to help you sleep comfortably all night long. Your smart bed will even learn how you sleep and provide you personalized insights to help you sleep even better. Why choose a Sleep Number Smart Bed? So you can choose your ideal comfort on either side. And now, save 40% on the new Sleep Number Special Edition Smart Bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. See store or sleepnumber.com for details.
The thing that I want the most is to find out what happened to Scott. I don't care. Like, if that means Temujin did it, then that's what it means. Scott Macklem, 20 years old, was gunned down in broad daylight in his college campus parking lot. And that breaks my heart. Because one time, I was a 20-year-old guy.
Right.
And campus parking lot. And I can't imagine.
Someday you're going to
that
have kids who are probably 20-year-old guys.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
His family didn't deserve it. He didn't. He certainly didn't deserve it. I don't care if he was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. Somebody shot him dead in broad daylight. And I do firmly believe that the guy that's in prison for it didn't do it. And I'm fighting like hell to, part one, rectify that, and part two, figure out what the hell happened that day. If part one and part two coincide, great. It gives me less work. But I do believe that there is something more here that we need to look at. And I don't care, I have no judgment on anything. I want his parents, Scott's parents, to have some peace in their heart of what happened to their son. I want Scott to have some peace in his soul. I want Temujin to be out if he is innocent of this crime. I want Crystal to not think that it's Temujin if that's the case. Those are the things I want. Like it makes me insane to feel like we are talking about something that seems to me so very cut and dried. But I believe it's true, but I will say that like the real, despite the fact that this podcast is called Inconceivable, the story of Temujin Kensu, like this is a lot about Scott. I just have nothing about Scott yet. And I want them to tell me about Scott. I would love to know about Scott. He looked like a handsome, well-liked person in Croswell, Michigan. I went and prayed with him. I want to know about Scott. And if they listen to this, I hope they will, to reach out to me.
That's Jason Usry, the host of a new podcast called Inconceivable, the Temujin Kensu Story. This is the Silver Linings Handbook podcast. I'm Jason Blair. This is our second episode with Jason Usry, the host of a new podcast called Inconceivable that is on Temujin Kensu, a Michigan man who's been serving a life sentence without parole for the 1986 murder of a 20-year-old college student, Scott Macklem, in the campus parking lot at St. Clair County Community College in Port Huron, Michigan. Court records suggest that the police quickly honed in on Temujin. It seemed like a logical move, but Temujin had an alibi, including more than a dozen people, 9 of whom were called at trial, who said they saw Temujin around or before 3 a.m. on the day of the 8:55 a.m. shooting of Scott. He was more than 430 miles away from the college and on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you've not heard the first episode, I recommend you listen. In this episode, we're going to talk more about Scott Macklem, the victim, why Temujin has not been released, some of the behaviors prior to his arrest, including allegations of sexual assault and emotional abuse that came up at his trial and commutation hearings. We're also going to discuss how Temujin's strategy thus far has failed and some of the potential reasons for that. With that, we'll pick it right back up. So I was going to ask you about something, like one, you brought up Crystal, and one of the things that I think, probably caught me when I originally heard this story was, you hear the ludicrousness, like the plane story, you hear all these things, and you ask yourself the question, like, how did this guy ever get convicted? And then, even if you don't have that answer, you do have that answer, you ask yourself, why hasn't this guy been released? And I think I picked up on a couple threads. And one of the threads that I saw both from what I read about the jurors in the trial and what I saw in his commutation hearing that happened later, and then even in the transcript to the original trial. There are a lot of moments where the Commutation Commission is admonishing him for his body language or for rolling its eyes or for doing these things that are showing some sign of disrespect. And you see that in the trial. And that's the kind of stuff that people will actually, in reality, sort of like convict you over. You're like, you're rolling your eyes while we're talking about a dead kid. You must be fill in the blank. But then also at the commutation hearing, I read the testimony of Crystal and the other women who said that he sexually assaulted them. And then I read the letter that Temujin wrote to his daughter, which is just brutal. The concept of any father writing a letter like that to their daughter is just brutal. And I said to myself, oh, I kind of get it now. If I put myself in the shoes of a politician and I have this person who may be innocent, like I'm 90% sure they didn't commit this crime, but they probably committed a bunch of really dangerous crimes that they were never charged with, or at least these people alleged it. And they're treating these very serious judicial proceedings this way. Like whether even if I'm not on the fence, like, am I going to be the politician who lets this guy out? And if he commits another sexual assault or he rolls his eyes at the justice system in some other way, I always think of that moment in the 2016 election where it was the debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump brought all the women that Bill Clinton had supposedly had affairs with or accused him of sexual assault and just lined them up at the debate. Do I want to be the politician that has the line of women who previously said this person assaulted him, or somebody, God forbid, afterwards.
Yeah.
And I began to look at it as like, okay, from a politician's perspective, I can see why they don't want to be the one on this particular case.
That's the thing. I mean, look, I mean, we have all done things that we are not proud of, or, you know, those sorts of things. Like the fact of the matter in his conviction is that unless I find something else, like he could not have killed Scott. That's the thing.
Right.
Yes. And I talked to him about some of those.
But I guess what I'm getting at too is just that there's this parallel mystery about why this hasn't been resolved. And I think that's also as big a question.
Okay. No, I'll address that too. I think that a big reason that hasn't been resolved is because of exactly what you're saying, that he was smug and he was arrogant and all of that, that media sort of, bravado that he presented was taken in a way. And like, look, like, there's no, as far as I know, you might know better than me, but as far as I know, there's no reason to overlook that after you're in the, you're not a jury at that point. Like, everything at that point, right? And I have some problems with some of the positioning of it while it was happening, but yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And I asked him about that. Like, how did you act when the jury came in? Like, what was going on? And he said, he basically said, like, yeah, I shrugged my shoulders, said some things and all that kind of stuff. And, that indicates to me that he was that way during the whole trial. The thing about him is he is a very smart, charming, well-spoken person.
Mm-hmm.
And he can also think he's the smartest guy in the room. And I think that did not help his case here.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is that basically the three things that the jury came back on that they held to him were the plain theory, which we talked about, the jailhouse informant Philip Joplin, who later recanted, and that was in a basically 2-hour. Something nobody talks about was that there was another inmate there who said he never said those things, but Joplin got inducements to go into a residential housing program
from law enforcement.
That came out after trial, of course. And then the quote eyewitness testimony, which was in a state of hypnosis, which is unconstitutional in most of the states in the union.
Yeah. Well,
so
and
those things are very, very troubling for this. And also, by the way, the fact that he was alibied 430 miles away, like those are the things they said they convicted him on. But let's not forget that he was so far away.
I have a friend who's a psychiatrist who specializes in hypnosis, and he said hypnosis is really good to relax and solve problems. It's terrible for truth.
I believe it. After all the stuff I've read, I completely agree with that. It's unbelievable. It's inconceivable.
Let me ask you though about the sexual assaults. Did you get a chance to ask him a question? Because multiple women at the commutation hearing years later accused him of it. Crystal accused him of just downright rape and sort of rape another time. Does he admit to those things? And if he did do those things, has he apologized, or do you think apologizing could help his case?
I'll take the last question first. I don't think the apologizing can help now. I asked him about the abuse allegations. He admitted to 2 of them. When I sat in front of him. Of course, I was not allowed to take a recorder in. I will report on that in the podcast with what he said. But he did admit to being that way. He also admitted to being abused by his mother. I asked him I asked him if he thought that the reason that he treated women the way he did was in response to trying to have control because of his anger for his mother. Like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm like, literally, I'm just like figuring this shit out as I go. Right.
Well, there's 2 things. Like, I think you're onto something that's legitimate, right? Like, if you have a very difficult relationship with the first woman in your life, it may shape the way you engage other women. If you view your mom as a threat, you may view women as a threat, whether you know it or not. But there's also another thing about Temujin that's really interesting that sort of like made me wonder before I even knew anything about his relationship with his mom. His willingness to walk away from relationships, which sort of points toward him not being the kind of guy who would shoot someone over a relationship because he finds it easy to walk away. And as soon as I had heard that, I was like, oh, he probably had a very poor relationship with a parent or parents. And I didn't know what his parent, because people who can easily walk away from relationships usually can do it because they've learned very early on to detach emotions from really important people very quickly.
Yeah.
And that plus, so it's a decent segue, and please continue with the things that you talked about.
I think that's a great segue. So I did talk to him about that, and what he told me was, because I asked him about that, like, was this a response to your mother's abuse? And he said, no. He said, you know what, Jason? I just wanted people to like me. He's like, I wasn't the best looking guy in the world, but I knew I had something, and that was the gift of gab. And I knew I could talk people into. He would have been the best salesperson in the world. Like, if he had gone straight, that'd have been
a problem right now.
I know. Oh my God! I know. I'm fighting that every single day.
Thin line between the best.
I'm trying to tell him, just let us do our work right for a little bit.
It's that moment where I think you're the used car salesman, where I'm like,
yeah. But he is very good at that. He's very good at selling, and but what he ended up telling me is, I just wanted people to like me. And I still just want people to like me.
Mochi Health is here to help you start your weight loss journey with caring, personalized support. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who truly listen and understand your unique needs. Eligible patients can access affordable GLP-1 medications delivered right to their door each month. No insurance? No problem. Mochi Health accepts FSA and HSA, making care accessible and affordable. And with 24/7 customer service, you'll never feel alone on your path to better health. Get started with Mochi Health today. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com with promo code AUDIO40.
Don't miss Good American Family.
We have a little girl here for adoption. She has dwarfism.
Starring Ellen Pompeo and Mark Duplass.
Something is off.
She's just a little girl. You think she's faking?
She has adult teeth. There are signs of puberty.
Inspired by the shocking stories that tore a family apart.
I don't know what's going on.
How old are you?
You should get a lawyer.
You have no idea how those people hurt this girl.
The Hulu original series, Good American Family, premieres March 19th, streaming on Hulu.
This new year, why not let Audible expand your life by listening? Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. Tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading professionals and experts on better health, relationships, career, finance, investing, and more. Maybe you want to kick a bad habit or start a good one. If you're interested in learning how to master your emotions and hearing scientifically backed advice for using your emotions as a tool, may I suggest Shift by psychologist and bestseller author Dr. Ethan Kross? Trust me, listening on Audible can help you reach the goals you set for yourself. Start listening today when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. Fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Lowe's, Levi's, and Nike pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cash back. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It's a no-brainer. Membership is free and easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cash back really adds up.
But like, how does that lead to sexual assault, though? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know about that part of it. Like, I'm not a psychologist, but like, what?
I'm just wondering, like, listening to all of what you're saying is like, maybe there is some stuff in there that's so deeply buried for him that, because I know he said that.
I think he wanted, if we want to get into it, like, I don't know, but again, because look, I know the guy. I love the guy. I think that he was deeply troubled at the time. I think he was.
I guess before you go on, part of what I'm getting at is I find that like reaction to it, him saying, you know, like, because a lot of people would grab that convenient excuse, right? Like, it was raised by my mother. But the fact that he seems to be saying that his mom's abusive behaviors had no impact on his life just suggests there might be something he hasn't dealt with.
No, I mean, I think he says that he was. I mean, he completely admits that he was not a great guy. He was a bad guy, back then. He owns that, and he has always since I started talking to him. But it is, I think from that standpoint, like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I asked him, have you had therapy here? And he's like, no. Yeah. I mean, I think that would work. That would help some. I'm in therapy.
Right.
You do that. You do it. You do it. Whatever. So, like, it does help, to help unravel the things that we built up in our minds. But I think that he, in my mind, I think because just the things I heard, again, I'm only basing this, like, I am not a professional in this. I'm reporting on it. What I feel like is that he felt very, I feel like he felt very trapped by his mother. His mother, based on his accounts, was not good to him. And I feel like
he didn't want other people to have power and control over him.
Exactly. It was all about control.
Power dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that he is, hopefully, he's been in prison for 38 years. Hopefully he's figured that out, right? So,
yeah. But you mentioned before that you didn't think like an apology would help at this point. Like, it's too far gone. And you might be right, and it might be my like optimistic view of the world. Because I think of the.
I'm getting more. You're getting more. This is like the weirdest switch in the history of true crime. If you're getting more optimistic, I'm more pessimistic.
Right.
It's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, I know, it's really strange. But Hey, man, I've turned over a new leaf in the last year.
Good. I'm happy for that.
I've become more sensitive even. It's
Bring me
really
back.
crazy.
Just
Right?
bring me back.
I'll be here. I'll be here with the lifeline and the rope. But, I think it's something like the murder of Heyman Lee, and Adnan Syed was convicted of a murder. Then Serial came out in 2014 and, questioning his whether he was really guilty. And I have always thought in all this Adnan Syed drama, like if you wanted to get me, Judge Jason, to let you out, if the world was horrible and somebody made me a judge, that perfect way to do it would be to say, you know what? I've done a lot of bad things. I did this and I am really sorry. Like, and I just wonder, like, if a genuine apology to the people who were hurt, even if, you're not going to apologize for something you didn't do, right? Like if you didn't kill Scott, there's no reason. You can say to his family, I'm sorry about your pain, which I've heard, right? But you can say to Crystal and you can say to the other women that you've done things that you think are wrong. I am genuinely sorry. And maybe not even do it publicly, maybe do it privately, maybe not do it and tell people. But I think it can make a difference. Like you can turn people around when you help them heal from something you've done to harm them. You can really turn people around.
So I will say this. So when I walked in to interview him, I told him I want to do things a little differently. And I said, I want to pray with you. And we prayed. We prayed first for Scott and his family. And then we prayed for him and that justice be served. And at the end of the interview, there were a couple moments that got emotional. And one of them was when I asked him in the beginning, I asked him who Fred Freeman is. That's part of the arc of the podcast.
Yeah.
And at the end, I asked him who Temujin Kensu is, and he got very, very emotional about that. And I do think that that is a sign of his immense growth and who he was and who he is. And then I asked him, will you go visit Scott's grave when you get out? And without a hesitation, he said yes. And he said, I wish I could stand in front of his parents and tell them I didn't do this. I wish I could tell his son I did not kill his father. Like, I want them to know I did not do this. And I mean, that's a really, like, it was very, to me, it was very powerful. And it took a lot out of me to not get emotional about it.
Yeah.
But it was super powerful because I do think, I mean, like I sat there in the room with him. I know that's true. Unless he's the greatest actor of all time. And I've watched a lot of movies.
You never know.
It could be. I mean, you never know, right? But
it felt genuine though. Genuine.
No, it was super genuine. And he really did.
I hate to circle back, Crystal, though, because there is no more important person to convicting him than Crystal. But the thing about Crystal that I think is interesting to me is if we take an all-knowing perspective and we say Temujin did not commit this crime, there is no bigger advocate for his conviction in this entire process than the woman who pointed to him, who's Crystal, the woman who fought against him in the commutation hearing, the woman who mentioned to Scott's parents that he's likely the one who did it. There are even things that Crystal said that feel like, to me, like him threatening them. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know whether he truly threatened them, But the one thing I picked up in everything I read in testimony from Crystal is that she is a truly scared woman. She is scared of him to this day, or at least to the commutation hearing. And I just feel like if something can be done to bridge that, or at least to cause some healing there, or some sense of safety, I think it would be just good for humanity, period, for her, and maybe even for Temujin too, internally. But I don't think it could hurt him. And I feel like there are a lot of victims in this story, right? If we believe Temujin, in the sense, Scott's a victim, Temujin's a victim, but Crystal's also a victim.
Right.
And she's the voice of the victim, the mother of the child of the victim, and the one who's accused him from the beginning of being the likely suspect and also harming her. And I just feel like not addressing that part of it creates such a powerful force against you.
No, I completely agree with you. First of all, I do want to say my heart aches. Again, when I was in Croswell in October, I went to Scott's grave and I knelt at his grave and I prayed, I believe, with him, and told him I was working to find out the truth. And that was gets me a little emotional thinking about it.
And I imagine it's like emotional too, because there are murders where people know who murdered him. This guy was shot in the back out of nowhere. He died, probably not knowing anything.
Exactly. Like I have my theories about what the crime is, but like it meant a lot to me to go there, to stand at his grave, find his grave first, and which took 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and find it and talk to him. Because I believe in that. Like I do believe in the higher order of things. So that was important to me. As far as Crystal is concerned, I would love for her to talk to me, because honest to God, I don't care if she thinks that Temujin or Fred or John or however she knew him as, I don't care if she thinks he did it. Like I have no judgment on either side. I want to know about Scott. Like the thing about so many of these stories, I think that gets missed is that we look at the whole breadth of it. And we have to hone in on certain different things, right? And like for this, I want to find out about Scott so much, because that's the thing that's missing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to know about it. And I want to have his voice elevated, because as like right now, I have a page of notes and that's it. But he was not a page of a person. He was a person. He was a person for 20 years. And I would love to talk to his parents and to know what he was like. And not like, I would not like with so much compassion, empathy. I'm sorry, because it just gets me a little emotional doing this, because I believe in it so much. Like, I want him to have his voice too in this podcast. And I can't do it right now because I have nothing, right? So I'm trying to fit that in there too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's hard. And I don't think most people realize that you have to
I know exactly what you
mitigate
mean.
all those things.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean when you're trying to tell a story and you can't. I mean, it's hard enough when you're talking about any victim because it's imperfect. Like I think of Ashley Loring, Heavy Runner. Like the best way to tell Ashley's story is to have Ashley in front of me. And it's not an option, right? So you already start when you're telling the story of someone who's missing or dead, missing something that's deep and profound, and that's the person. And then the only avenue or way we have to give those people a voice, whether it's Scott or Breonna Maitland or whoever, is through the people who knew them and loved them.
Yeah.
And I think even in an innocence case, going back to Saeed, like, we need to honor Heyman Lee, and we need to honor Scott Macklem, regardless of what the outcome is. And we need to honor the people who are missing and lost. And I understand that same feeling from when I'm like researching for my interviews and someone won't talk to me about someone and someone else will in my research. And I just know that there's like, even though I interview, like one person, I usually will research with other people to find out different pieces, that there's just, it's going to be hard to tell the story of Temujin Kensu, which I really think you're actually telling the story of all these people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
without Earl's voice, Scott's friends, Scott's family.
Yeah. And I'm working on
again.
Yeah. And I'm working on getting those voices. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it's hard because the thing that's like so confronting me, and you touched on it there, is that, in these cases, and in this one, because I'm so closely tied to it, there are two direct victims if Temujin's innocent, right? Which I believe he is. And that means that Scott Macklem is in Croswell Cemetery, and Temujin Kensu is in Macomb County Correctional Facility number 189355. And that also means that their families have continued to be victimized and their lives have been forever changed during that time. And it also means that a killer has gone free to kill again or whatever.
Yep.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai car or SUV you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's Best Warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. But don't wait. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event is going on now, so visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Calling all dog owners. Your furry friend deserves top-notch nourishment, and Ollie delivers the clean, fresh nutrition your dog needs in 5 flavors they'll absolutely flip over. Ollie is made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world, with absolutely no harmful fillers or preservatives. With protein-first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, dang, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ollie. Give your pup a fresh start this new year by letting them taste test a personalized meal plan with Ollie. Head to ollie.com/Wondery. Tell them all about your dog and use code WONDERY to get 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a clean bowl guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/Wondery and enter code WONDERY to get 60% off your first box. Start your dog's new year off right with Ollie. Start your dog's new year off right with Ollie.
And that's a very confronting thing to me because you know me very well. You know, I'm a I'm a belief in the system guy, right? For most of it, right? I have questions and things that I ask about, but by and large, I believe in the system, despite the fact that it's run by people who are flawed. And I just want, in this case, again, a case. I didn't think I'd be doing a wrongful conviction podcast. Are you kidding me? I just want to do my Santa podcast. Good God. I just want to do fun stuff. And
you've been hanging out with me and Alice too much.
I know. You guys wandered me into the woods here. Now I got to do this. But I do believe it's the right thing. I believe.
Can I jump back on something you were just saying there?
Yeah.
What I heard you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, I heard you saying essentially, in essence of what you were saying, is you can't bring Scott back. But the best thing would be to give him a voice.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bring Scott back, but what you can do is help bring about some justice around his case and for Temujin. And your ideal would be to be able to give Scott a voice, to be able to give Temujin justice, which would be freedom, and maybe even to reinvigorate an investigation. Mm-hmm. But what happens, Jason? What would it feel like, and what happens if tomorrow you find something out that leaves you convinced that Temujin did it?
Well, I would be heartbroken, but it would also make the podcast name make more sense. Inconceivable, the story of Temujin Kensu. It'd be a story this whole time.
It works either way.
Right? It really does. A lot of people ask me about it, and I think it would work either way, right? People, I'm not dumb. I'm a pretty smart guy. Yeah, it'd break my heart because I've gotten to know Temujin over the last few years, or a couple of years, and I believe in what he's saying, and I don't believe this happened. I don't, and based on the evidence, again, I could believe what anybody says until the cows come home. But I don't, the evidence cannot support this case.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But weird miracles happen. There's a videotape that's been lost or whatever. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm curious how you felt. And I'll give you a thought. So in my journalism career, when I was covering criminal justice, I'm already to go to prison often to do interviews or, to cover things. I even went to a play at Sing Sing held by the inmates, which was really, really cool.
Right.
But I will tell you this. I've never met a convicted murderer that I didn't like.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Nice
I'm
folks.
sure they're very likable people.
Which is kind of crazy. Especially the felony murder people, because they probably didn't pull the trigger. Don't get me wrong. I've met plenty of people who are criminals that I don't like, but it was a striking thing for me in visiting prisons and talking to murderers that I could see myself having beer with some of these guys, cognitive dissonance where I'm you killed someone?
The issue for me is that they're the evidence, again, I looked at this for a long time. The evidence does not support that he was there. And that's the thing, got me over the edge, he's a likable guy. If you listen to any of his podcasts, he is the most likable person in the world. He's even more likable than you. But the evidence does not. I know. Maybe not more likable than you. You're the most likable person in the world.
Right.
But the evidence does not support that he could have done this crime. And there's no, in my opinion, look, what do I know? But I do not believe there's any way he could have been convicted of this crime today And he should not have been convicted of this crime in 1986. Now, that's not to say because of the path in his life at that time that he would not have been convicted of something else as he was going on, because he was going in a bad path, right?
So I don't necessarily hold this view. I actually don't hold this view. But what would you say to somebody who said, okay, maybe Temujin is innocent, but he's exactly where he needs to be? Look at all these other things he was never charged with.
That doesn't matter for the crime to me. Like, look, like, yes, like if you want to hold people accountable for the crime that they are arrested and convicted for, I am totally on board with that. If you want to put a person in prison for a crime that they didn't do, and that, like, the things, I've said this before, the things that Temujin has done since he's been in prison are honestly, I mean, they're more than most of us will do outside. Mm-hmm. And if you can imagine taking the cage off of him and him doing those things, if he would still do those, I don't know, then that would be amazing. Because I do think he has a unique experience with the system, and he could do things to help create opportunities for inmates and prison reform, right? So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm all for
But you get what I'm saying. There's some people who are going to say, this is a public service conviction. Maybe he didn't commit the crime, but like we, society, are all better off for the fact that he spent, okay, maybe let him out, but we're all better off for the fact that he went there. He might be better
Convict him for the crime. That's all I'm going to say. Like my position is, like, I am totally fine with him serving whatever he would have served on the basis of the crime that he would have committed with no problem. And again, I will say this: he was going down a path. He had a specific, place that he was going. It might have led to more. I don't know that. None of us can know that, right? But like putting him in prison for 38 years, for life, for something he did, like, we absolutely cannot prove, is preposterous to me. And I will tell you all, every single person that's watching this, and everybody listens to this, like, I'm the last person that wants to do that. Like, it's crazy to me. And like, yeah. I believe in our justice system. It's flawed, and I know that, but like, it makes me, I'm very, very, like, this case and a few others get me a little worked up about it. But it, like, literally, I appreciate that question, Jason, because it is, I think you're exactly right. That's a lot of the reason he got convicted, was because people wanted him to be off the street, because he was a bad guy, right? He was like a bad dude. But we cannot convict a bad dude for murder if he didn't commit murder. And that's a sad thing.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, because our justice system falls apart if we start convicting people for their other bad acts as opposed to their acts. But I think it's an acceptance of the reality, which is just like those jurors said, his arrogance pushed him over the edge, or the fact that, he didn't testify, or all sorts of things that shouldn't be relevant. Ultimately, we do convict people based on things that aren't relevant sometimes, or it sways a juror. Because what I worry about, if what you're saying is correct and there's no way he committed this crime, I worry that the same kinds of behaviors, like coming off as arrogant, or, not apologizing for things, or being adversarial, or whatever it is, pick your version of it, are going to work against him, because we're in a situation now where it's only the mercy of the governor that's going to get him out, or new evidence, but that's unlikely. So why wouldn't you do everything you can to make yourself sympathetic to that person. And things like apologizing and things like sort of like getting on bended knee and asking for mercy and all of those are the things that I think will make you the most sympathetic character. And so when I see that, I say to myself, like, oh, this person is not particularly strategic, which I can't say about Temujin because he is particularly strategic. He's a smart guy, so it's not that. So what is it when we know we're in a world where the only way you get your freedom is mercy? Why would you not do the things that would get you mercy, which is like humbling yourself before people and apologizing and other things along those lines? Because your only way out is to be a sympathetic person.
I want to respond to that because this is something that I've had a number of talks with the camp, with the supporters, and with Julia and with Brett and everybody else. The truth of the matter is that the aggressive nature of the rhetoric has not worked.
Right.
It's not productive.
Nope.
My podcast, I don't know what anybody else's will be, but mine will be compassionate, and it'll be honest, and it'll be about the truth, but it will not try to villainize the government and paint them in a way that they will not do it. Like we had, I was supposed to have an interview with him in October, and they blocked me. And then Paula and I got on a call with them. And after that call, they were convinced that I was going to do this. And I said, I'm not trying to paint you guys in a bad light. I'm just trying to talk to them, right? And that's really all I'm trying to do. I will say things that are true about my visit, but I'm not going to villainize people for doing their jobs.
Yeah,
and
it's not going to be effective. It
doesn't matter. It simply doesn't matter. I get so tired of this. Let's just fight everybody. No, what it is we have the truth here right now that we're working with, and let's operate on that, and
let's let the sun shine, right?
Correct.
But I think also remembering that we're no longer at a stage in the process where it's about the law or the facts. It's about the choice of another human being to show you mercy. So you want to,
correct.
And to your point about the aggressive stuff, I get it, right?
Me too.
It hurts. It's got to be maddening and sad to be in that kind of position. But I'm not prone to use aggression, as you know, but on occasion I have to. Well, when you're aggressive, you better attack from a position of power.
Correct.
Right? Because you get one shot, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in Trump administration too, a lot of people are learning this lesson of if you try to kill the king, you better hit him.
Yeah. You better not miss.
Right? You better not miss. But aggression while you're locked in a cage is not particularly scary to anyone.
No.
And so
no, you're exactly right. No, I think that's a great point. Unfortunately, no matter how loud our few voices are for Temujin, there's no leverage until we get the voices loud enough, and we all sing in the same chord, and we all move to the same music. And
I think it's important that someone tells the truth, but I think there's a part of this that Temujin needs to do. And that if Temujin doesn't do that part, it's going to take somebody exceptional and willing to take a lot of risk and willing to put themselves politically on the line. And I'm not denigrating politicians, but I'm just thinking of it in their selfish own interests. Like, they don't know him. You know what I mean? Like,
no, they don't know him. They haven't read the case. They like most people don't know it. Like they will read the media stuff, and like the media stuff is like, yeah, I mean, like, how could you have done this, right? Like, you don't see all the other stuff, and you don't understand like why he was a suspect, which he was a good suspect for it just because of the behavior with, and all those things, right? Like, that's fine.
Have you talked to somebody who's in DC? They have something called the Office of the Pardon Attorney. It works for the president through the Justice Department. And what they do is they review the entire case file. And I think it works in most states in a similar way. And they give like a 1 or 2 page summary and it's not going to go straight to the governor. It's going to go to the governor.
Right.
And those summaries are so fascinating. It's a summary of the facts of the case, summary of the facts of the request for clemency and pardon, the risks of pardoning said person, the likelihood of offense, like all sorts of other stuff like that. And I think it would help all of these cases. Adnan Syed probably shot himself in terms of his exoneration for very similar reasons, like his press. If all of them put themselves in the shoes of the person who has power over you, whether that's the jury or whether that's the judge or whether that's the cop or whether that's whoever. And is that a perfect world? No. The truth should win out. It really should. It should win out, but that's
1,000%.
Yeah.
No, I think that, I mean, I have not.
We need both. Right. We need both. Yeah. It's something to take a look at if you can get a copy either by FOIA or some other way of just anyone's clemency report. It'll help you understand the world that a politician the lens they look at to get them. There's a reason why like a lot of pardons happen as
a term comes to the end.
Yes, right. But let me in terms of, you brought up Scott's family and friends, and you said you hadn't had a chance to really speak with them. And
I want to.
Yeah. And what would you, for them or Crystal, what kind of message would you, if they were listening to this conversation, want to send to them about what you're trying to accomplish here?
The thing that I want the most is to find out what happened to Scott. I don't care. Like, if that means Temujin did it, then that's what it means. Scott Macklem, 20 years old, was gunned down in broad daylight in his college campus parking lot. And that breaks my heart. Because one time, I was a 20-year-old guy.
Right.
And campus parking lot. And I can't imagine.
Someday you're going to have kids who are probably 20-year-old guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His family didn't deserve it. He certainly didn't deserve it. I don't care if he was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. Somebody shot him dead in broad daylight. And I do firmly believe that the guy that's in prison for it didn't do it. And I'm fighting like hell to, part one, rectify that, and part two, figure out what the hell happened that day. If part one and part two coincide, great. It gives me less work. But I do believe that there is something more here that we need to look at. And I don't care, I have no judgment on anything. I want his parents, Scott's parents, to have some peace in their heart of what happened to their son. I want Scott to have some peace in his soul. I want Temujin to be out if he is innocent of this crime. I want Crystal to not think that it's Temujin if that's the case. Those are the things I want. Like it makes me insane to feel like we are talking about something that seems to me so very cut and dried, but I believe it's true. But I will say that like the real, despite the fact that this podcast is called Inconceivable, the story of Temujin Kensu, like this is a lot about Scott. I just have nothing about Scott yet. And I want them to tell me about Scott. I would love to know about Scott. He looked like a handsome, well-liked person in Croswell, Michigan. I went and prayed with him. I want to know about Scott. And if they listen to this, I hope they will, to reach out to me so I can I can get in touch with them. But yeah, I mean, really, like it's this is an emotional journey. I don't know that people know, and you know this because you've done this stuff before. I didn't know this. I had no idea walking. Like I did a silly Santa podcast, and it was just fun, and ha ha ha. And then I got into this, and like I'm crying all the time. I'm looking at all these like not great things, and it's like it's dark. It's dark as hell, and you just have to like suck it up and go into it and say, yeah, I need to burn some sage. I need to burn a hell of a lot of sage, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like you just have to like suck it up and like say, what are you doing it for? And the thing I'm doing it for here is the truth for Scott and the truth for Temujin. And I say this in the podcast, 2 life sentences, one search for the truth. And I firmly believe that there are 2 life sentences here, and both of them have been administered wrongly. I think that yeah. And the other thing I'll say real fast is that like it drives me insane that we have a statute of limitations on murder, but not on justice, because I fully believe that Temujin is innocent, and we have not administered that. What's that?
Murder? Is there a statute of limitations on murder in Michigan?
No, there's no statute. No, did I say it? I might have said it backwards.
You may have said it backwards.
I said it backwards.
All right.
All right. Well, I'll do it again. All right. All right. There is no statute of limitations on murder. All right.
No, there is a statute of limitations.
No, sorry. There's a statute of limitations on murder. Jesus. I swear. Like
you need to
there's
apologize.
A statute of limitations on murder, and then there is no statute of limitations on the truth. Like, that's the problem. Like the thing is, like we can say like you can always be convicted of murder, but you can like once we put you in the pen, you may never get out, right?
Yeah,
because the procedural things in this case have kept, even though Temujin has gotten so many things in his favor, he still can't get out.
Yep. And you're getting to the idea that our justice system is designed to move toward finality. And at every stage of your appellate process, you get closer to finality. And one of the ways you do it is you can't bring in the evidence that you had before. So somebody can go through the appellate process on both the federal and the state side, right, and you have an amazing case, but each court only gets to see a small piece of it or review a small piece of it. And I think, I think the other side would argue that for victims and for victims' family members, there needs to be an end to it at some point. It can't go on forever. And I do think that there's some truth to that. But one of the things listening to all these innocence cases like Temujin's, right? Like Leo Schofield's, like Pablo Velez Jr.'s. I'm going to have Lisa, his advocate, on.
Yeah. Good.
Actually, it's going to be the week before this episode.
Good.
And all of those cases, there's something, and I think we can legally do it. There's a way to do it in the law that provides a space and exception for certain cases where it seems very clear.
Yeah.
That there's, and I just think we have not figured out how to craft the law in that right way. And I think that's, to me, when it comes to innocence, the next piece of advocacy isn't really about like getting Scott Peterson out or getting Stephen Avery. It's coming up with what laws do we need to change for these very exceptional cases where people have gone through the appellate process, but there's something very convincing about the totality of what's been presented when each court can only review a part of it. Anyway,
Jason. And I would just add to that, like taking some of the restrictions off of things, like as you know, because you've interviewed David and Kristen multiple times.
From Othram.
From Othram. You have done a great job with those things. There are so many things that are happening in terms of the technical or technological side of true crime now that we can actually get to better answers, which is amazing. And there, cases like this, it happened 38 years ago, like I want things like the shotgun, the ammo box that was found there. I want that tested for touch DNA.
Right.
Like, okay, because the fingerprint that was found on that box that was not even found by police, it was found by a student named, I won't say his name, but it was found by a student the next day. It was tested against Temujin's fingerprint, and it was not a match.
And so touch DNA wasn't even a thing then.
Exactly. So like, could that lead to something? Like, there are a lot of different things to get to the answers, and that's the thing.
And maybe that's also a part of it too. Like looking at how do we build laws that allow for modifications based on technology and new advances.
I would love that. You should write the law. I'll sign off on it because you're smarter than I am.
You don't want that law, buddy. You don't want the Jason dictatorship. There's a reason why
J&J right there.
Right,
knocking it out.
Anyway, thanks for having the robust conversation. Thanks for answering the tough questions and the easier ones. I appreciate it. I believe that ultimately, like what you have to, if you want justice, you have to be in love with the truth. And sometimes our system works against the truth for competing reasons. But I think being in love with the truth is going to be the important part. And I think a lot of my questions, even the ones that were loaded, it really comes from, I really firmly believe like these are the true things that will lead to justice. So I appreciate you indulging me. And
can I say something before we go real fast?
Of course.
So I've said this to Julia. I say this on my own podcast with the episodes releasing soon. So I walked into this when I heard the episode from Brett and Alice a few years ago, totally believing that Temujin was innocent. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and even to this day, I still believe he's innocent. But because I believe he's innocent, that means I have a bias. And so I walk into this with that bias. And I am doing everything I can to pop that balloon.
Yeah.
And that makes me a very good advocate for this for the truth, because I want to blow it up.
Because I'll tell you, just as a journalist, that is exactly the way you do it. You come up with a hypothesis, you collect evidence for it, and then you try to destroy your hypothesis. And that's the way you ultimately will get to the truth.
Did you actually just make me a journalist in the Jason Blair School of Journalism?
I did. I've been calling you one.
I want my diploma. My diploma should be in the mail tomorrow.
Behind your back, I've been calling you one. So...
no, but that's the truth. Like, I appreciate
journalism.
Look, I appreciate you having me on. Like, I love our conversations, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to people about this case. And yeah, I mean, I think that like it's a big conversation, and there are a lot of things that we need to continue to talk about, not just in this case, but in a number of cases. And no, I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too. And I want to have you back as you get further in the
for number 20.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us. Jason and I talked about a lot of great podcasts during then. One, if you want to know more about the Temujin Kensu story and Scott Macklem's murder, the Consult podcast with Julia Cowley and her co-hosts, Susan Kostler-Drew, Angela Surser, and Bob Drew, did a great series looking at the behaviors related to the case. We also mentioned the Prosecutors podcast. They did an awesome, I believe, 2-part series a couple years ago. I recommend checking that out. If you'd like to join us for more discussions with me and other listeners, we can be found on most social media platforms, including a listener-owned Facebook group called the Silver Linings Fireside Chat. For those of you who are interested in true crime, you can check out our new publication, The True Crime Times, on Substack. That's a partnership between me and Brett and Alice from the Prosecutors, but we want voices from all over the true crime community, including listeners and consumers. Christina Byington, one of our listeners, wrote a really, really powerful personal essay on the loss of her cousin, Anita. Super moving. Jason wrote about Temujin's case. There are all sorts of great things. So we want you there as subscribers, and we also want you there as writers, and for your suggestions that you have for deeper conversations with guests like this one and live conversations with other listeners. And to support the podcast, you can also join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Silver Linings Handbook. I'm Jason Blair, and this is the Silver Linings Handbook podcast. We'll see you guys all again in a few days.